Italy, this time apparently with the young saying he deserves everything he gets, but older people prepared to forgive the aging politician.
This is absolutely just. I think it's incredible that people still don't understand what kind of person he is. He must start paying the price for what he's done.
The best thing would be for Berlusconi to resign and then a transitional government to come in to work on electoral law.
Well, he loves what he does. He should just do it a bit more cleverly, like many others do.
Berlusconi's been lucky in that his opponents have been unable to capitalise on his problems in the past. Now, though, they smell blood.
We want the judges to make the truth come out, and we want him to go to trial. That's the only thing we ask. Then, if he's innocent, God bless him, and in a couple of weeks, we will know the truth.
In the face of all this, Berlusconi's latest response has been to say that the country needs political stability to keep Italy's economic reforms on track.
The
measures we've brought in have been appreciated by the international authorities, and they've confirmed opposition is strong, but have said we need stable government to maintain a positive attitude from the international business community.
Which is another way of saying it shouldn't matter what I do in private, as long as we have political stability. Not, perhaps, the kind of philosophy in keeping with the ideals of the European Union. Lawrence Lee, Al Jazeera.
A South Sudan government minister has been shot dead at his office in the capital, Juba. The shooting was just days after a referendum confirmed that South Sudan will become Africa's newest independent state. Jimmy Lemmy was the Minister for Rural Development and Cooperation. The Interior Ministry said he was killed by his driver, who was also his brother-in-law, because of a family dispute. Emotions running pretty high in Pakistan after an American shot and killed two armed men he says were trying to rob him. Anti-US protests have been taking place in Lahore ever since the incident almost 2 weeks ago. Kamal Haider reports.
A diplomatic row is brewing between Pakistan and the US over the arrest of an American citizen. Raymond Davis is being held in the shooting deaths of two people in Lahore. He says they were trying to rob him at gunpoint. The US Embassy asserts he's a diplomatic employee, and his arrest is a clear violation of the Vienna Convention. So far, Pakistan disagrees. Davis has already appeared in court and his case continues.
This US diplomat gunned down two innocent civilians in broad daylight. We want to inquire what he was doing on the streets of Lahore with a pistol and all alone.
Events after the shooting added to the existing outrage in Pakistan. That's when a US consulate vehicle drove the wrong way down a one-way street, killing a motorcyclist before leaving the scene. Tens of thousands of protesters have rallied in Lahore to demand justice. The US sent a senior congressional delegation to demand that Islamabad free Davis. However, fearing a major backlash, the Pakistani government says it will let the court decide. That's not good enough for some US lawmakers, who are now threatening to stop aid to Pakistan. The event is now creating a complex scenario, with Pakistan jeopardizing its relations with its largest provider of economic and military assistance, while the USA stands to alienate one of its major allies in the war next door in Afghanistan. Kamal Haider, Al Jazeera, Islamabad.
Thailand and Cambodia are blaming each other after fighting damaged an 11th century Hindu temple. Cambodia denies its soldiers are using the Preah Vihear temple as a bunker. Recent fighting over border demarcations killed at least 11 people. Well, just a couple of days ago, we were saying it was quite interesting that there were new military talks taking place between North and South Korea. Well, they're over. They were the first discussions between the two sides since 4 people were killed in the shelling of a South Korean island last November. More from Harry Fawcett.
Day 2 of these talks was recorded in still pictures, not video, and in the end there was a similar lack of movement in the positions of the two sides. Today, South and North Korea proceeded with the second working-level meeting for the inter-Korea high-level military talks in the House of Peace in Panmunjom, but it ended without agreement. South Korea wanted any high-level talks to centre on and result in so-called responsible measures for 2 fatal incidents in 2010. The shelling in November of Yeonpyeong Island, south of the disputed Western Sea border. 2 Marines and 2 civilians were killed, and the sinking of its Chonan warship in March with a loss of 46 lives. According to the South Korean account, the northern delegation said those issues would only be embraced as part of a wider discussion about provocations by both sides. Not good enough for their southern counterparts. After the shelling of Yeonpyeong Island in November last year, one respected measure of public sentiment put the proportion of South Koreans either concerned or very concerned about the security situation at a record high, more than 80%. At Seoul's War Memorial Park, there was little optimism that the talks would advance the cause of peace.
Before any talks, the North should have provided a sense of trust. Without trust, real dialogue cannot happen.
We have to provide aid to the North when we have to, but now it is time to stick to principle. North Korea should make an apology.
One Conservative member of the Parliament's National Defence Committee says any further talks will founder on the same issue.
They will talk, but they cannot find any point or any space or any area of cooperation or agreement.
There is another view that North Korea is becoming increasingly desperate for a resumption of aid, and that its sheer willingness for talks in the first place signals a potential appetite for compromise. But in 2 days of discussions this week, compromise was as elusive as ever. Harry Fawcett, Al Jazeera, Seoul.
The brother and sister of a man who's suspected of planting a bomb at Russia's busiest airport have been arrested for allegedly helping him. 36 people were killed at Domodedovo Airport in January. Russian officials believe 20-year-old Magomed Yevloyev from the North Caucasus was the bomber. His brother Ahmed and his sister Fatima and another man have been detained. China's military capabilities have been under the spotlight pretty recently because of the release last month of some pictures which apparently show a new stealth fighter jet developed by Beijing. And the aircraft has led to a new theory on how China actually managed to achieve such advances. Barnaby Phillips reports from Serbia.
It's a bleak place, but history was made here. It was 1999, Yugoslavia under attack from NATO, when Zoltan Dani became the only person to have ever shot down a stealth bomber plane. His missile hit it in the sky, and it came down in these fields. It was an American F-117, the pride of their Air Force. Excited villagers could scarcely believe it. For Serbia, a moment of triumph amidst years of humiliation and retreat. Zoltan had used radar to see a plane designed to be invisible. Afterwards, he says 3 countries offered money for his expertise. 2 from the Middle East, and a third, which he would not name, but which he describes as a rising power. Fast forward to today, and pictures emerge of China's stealth fighter plane, a breakthrough that has taken the world by surprise and led many to ask, how did China do it?
Most of the remains of the American plane are on display here at Belgrade's Aviation Museum. Now, the Chinese deny any link between their plane and the American one. Rather, they say they've developed a new stealth fighter using indigenous, entirely Chinese technology.
We met a farmer who lives near where the American plane was shot down. Like many here, he recalls how that event, briefly, transformed lives in a traditional rural community.
We found parts of the plane in the fields. Then the Chinese came here and offered us gifts and sometimes money in return for those parts. They were asking everyone. They came to my house. I gave them part of the plane. I had no use for it.
So, assuming the Chinese did get pieces of the American plane, would that have helped them to build their own very different-looking model?
Anyone who had access to the surface of the aircraft could learn about the special coating that makes it almost invisible to radar. So if they had parts of the F-117, that would have been a big advantage to developing their own stealth aircraft.
It's an intriguing story, and we'll probably never know the whole truth. whether the Chinese really did rely on help from a small Serbian village to build a very modern plane. Barnaby Phillips, Al Jazeera in northern Serbia.
Hello, David Foster with the headlines here on Al Jazeera. Thousands of people still continuing to protest against the Egyptian government in Cairo. Crowds not only in Tahrir or Liberation Square now, but also outside Parliament. The country's 3 independent trades unions have joined the protest, demanding better wages and benefits. And 3 protesters have died and several have been wounded in clashes with police in the western Egyptian province of New Valley. Anti-Mubarak demonstrations started there on Tuesday night. Several people hurt and taken to hospital. Reports say it was the first serious clashes in that province since the 28th of January, when a day of anger was observed. Elsewhere, a series of car bombs has killed at least 7 people in the northern Iraqi city of Kirkuk. The explosions went off in quick succession. It was outside a Kurdish police headquarters, a pharmacy, and as you could see, on a highway, at least 70 people were wounded. Italian prosecutors have requested the indictment of the country's Prime Minister, Silvio Berlusconi, for abuse of power and child prostitution. Milan prosecutors accuse him of paying for sex with a number of young women, including a 17-year-old Moroccan dancer. He denies the allegations. Armed men have seized a supertanker carrying $200 million worth of crude oil off the coast of Oman. The Greek-owned Irene was attacked by the group, which took 25 crew members captive. Authorities haven't been able to communicate with the ship, which has 7 Greeks, 17 Filipinos and 1 Georgian aboard. Military talks between South and North Korea have collapsed. South Korea's defense ministry says the North walked out of the talks. They were the first between the 2 sides since the shelling of a South Korean island in November. The Russian President Dmitry Medvedev has ordered additional weapons to be deployed to islands disputed with Japan. Soviet troops occupied the Kuril Islands off Japan's northern coast at the end of World War II. Nokia's boss has compared the firm to a man standing on a burning oil platform surrounded by a blazing fire of competition. He wrote the words in an internal staff memo which was leaked and tells that big decisions need to be made. More from me with the News Hour at the top of the hour.